my name is Dina, and I'm back again today with another video for PotomacBeads. Today we're going to be using memory wire, some storm duos, and some round trios, and then some seed beads, and some other 3 and 4 millimeter beads to make a bangle bracelet out of the memory wire. It's called Cleo's Memory because it is named after my cat, Cleopatra, who unfortunately has passed away recently. So I thought, I'll make a video in her memory. So stay tuned and you'll see the steps to follow on how to make this interesting bracelet.
Alright, so to get started on this bracelet, I have all my beads laid out on the mat already that I need. You're probably going to need more seed beads than what's laying here, but as far as the other beads, the 3 millimeters, 3 millimeter bicones, 4 millimeters, your storm duos, and then your round trios, I have everything out that I need. I usually wear about a 7-inch bracelet, so for this bracelet itself, as far as knowing how many round trios that you're going to need, I would do 1 component per inch. So if you usually wear a 7-inch bracelet, then we're going to do 7 components. If you're more closer to an 8-inch bracelet, then you're going to do 8, and so on and so forth. So you can use that as your guide. You'll also use that as your guide when we get to the point where we will be cutting the memory wire. We're going to be using that as our guide as well. So to start off, I've got a 2-needle project for you. You can definitely do this with 1 needle. I learned how to do this with two needles only because this was one of the very first designs that I made back when I first started designing jewelry. So I've kind of revamped it a little bit and made it a little bit different and added the memory wire. So the original looks a little bit slightly different, but it's the same concept. But I did use 2 needles, so we're going to do 2 needles again today. So I've got about 7 feet of thread, and I've got 1 needle on both ends. So when we go put our beads down to the center, we're really only going to be working with about 3 to 3.5 feet of thread each time. So it's not too bad. Okay, so to start off with our component, we're going to start with just adding a 4 millimeter bicone or your 4 millimeter bead. We're going to let that fall down to the center. We're then going to add 2 11-ohs on both needles. So 2 on one side, 2 on the other. See if I can do this with my left. Usually pretty good. Sometimes I have some problems. Okay, so 2 11-ohs on both sides. We're going to go ahead and pick up a series of storm duo, and then an 8-oh, and then a storm duo. And then we're going to cross through with our needles with that. So just starting with 1 needle on the right. Since I'm right-handed, I usually start with the right stuff. We're going to pick up our storm duo in this fashion. So I'm going to consider this the inner corner because it kind of turns inwards. And then this part where the needle is coming out of, I'm going to consider that the outer edge. So you've got the inner edge that I'm going into, and I'm coming out the outer edge. Because at different points of the component, you're going to be coming out of the storm duo in different places, going into it and coming out of it. So right now we're going to go in through the inner edge. We're going to pick up an 8-oh. And then the next one we pick up, we're going to go through the outer edge. So that way, the 2 outer edges are sitting up against your 8-oh. So now you've got that on the right-hand side. Get that closer to you so you can see it a little bit better. Now, your left needle, those are the 2 seed beads that should be down to the center. So your left needle, go ahead and go through those same beads, going from the left to the right. So that way we're crisscrossing. Now you want to hold your needles together, kind of sort of like that, and just gently pull down on your beads. Once you get a little bit further down the thread, put your needles down and then just start pinching it and just gently pull, because you don't want to pull too hard and too fast because it could fray the thread. And with us working with about 3.5-ish feet, we'll probably notice a little bit of fraying if the bicones cause that, because sometimes bicones can do that because they are crystals. So now I'm down to the center, so I'm just pulling it tight, and that it should look something similar to that. Alright, so now I'm going to get my thread untangled from my sample project and get everything situated to where I can grab the needles now. Okay, so I'm putting one off to the right and another needle is off to the left. Get this back up here again so you can see it again. Okay, so I'm working with the right hand thread, and I'm going to, so I'm coming out of this hole right here. We need to get from this hole of the Storm Duo up to this one. Do that. We're going to add 4 15s. So I got 4 15-0s. We're going to go straight through that one. Now usually when I'm working with 2 needles, I can usually do the same thing on either side, but I'm actually going to teach you how to do this just by using one thread, or one side, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to pick up the left hand side here in a minute, and then we're going to go back through the beads that we just added. So with that said, I've already added those 4 15s. Now we're going to add 2 15s, one of your round trios. Make sure that you're going through one of the outer holes. So you've got this outer hole here, this one here, and then you've got your center hole. So first off, make sure that all of your holes are clear. Excuse me. Make sure all your holes are clear so you don't run into that problem halfway through your project. So I've got 2 15s, my round trio through one of the outer holes, and then 2 more 15s. I'm coming out of this hole in the Storm Duo. I'm going to go over to the other open hole on the left-hand side of the Storm Duo on the left-hand side. And then, after I get uncaught with all of my stuff there, that's the way everything should look. So now with this thread, or we're going to put down the right-hand side, pick up the left. I'm so not in frame, sorry. We're going to pick up the left, and now we're going to add the 15s on this side. So add 4 15s on your left needle. Coming out of the bottom hole, we're going to go through that top hole, as well as go through the 2 15s, the trio, the 2 15s, and come out the Storm Duo on the right. So basically just about every single bead in this project will have at darn, allergies today. Just about every single bead in this project will have 2 strands of thread through it. And I forgot to mention earlier, I'm using the gold thread today because I'm using more of gold colored beads and cream colors and stuff. Alright, so now we're coming out of here. We need to go to sorry. We need to go to the middle hole of the round trio. And I'm moving things around. I'm so sorry. Okay, to get there, we're going to pick up 3 of our 11-0s. And we're going to pick up 1 of our 3mm bicones, or 3mm rounds, whichever you choose. We're coming out of our right hand upper hole of the Storm Duo. We're going to go through just the center hole of the round trio. Now you have everything like that. Now before you move on and pick up the left hand thread, go ahead and add another 3mm bead and pull that down to the project. Now usually what I do, the thread that I just ended up pulling tight, I keep tight in my fingers like I just did. I just wrapped it around my finger and I'm holding it with my other finger. Just to kind of keep it taut so it's out of the way, and it's something that will help with your tension. So now I'm picking up this thread, the thread that's on the left hand side, we're going to do the same thing on the left side as on the right. So here we added 3 11/0s plus the 3mm. Well, here your 3mm is already sitting there. So we're just going to add 3 11/0s. Then we're going to go through the 3mm, the middle hole of the round trio, and the next 3mm. What am I caught on now? My thread burner. Okay, move that out of the side. Okay, so now when you do that, your working thread is now coming out of the right hand side. So now we still have one hole of that round trio that we need to fill out. So to get there, we're going to add 3 of our 11/0s. And now we're going to copy what the first part that we did down here is going to look the same up here as well. So to do that, we need to get our storm duo on. And at this point in time, we're going to go through the outer edge of the storm duo towards the inner. Now, like I said, we're going to make this part look the same as this, so now we have to add our 2 15s. So we're going to add 2 15s. So we've got our 3 11s, our storm duo from the outer to the inner, and 2 15s. We're coming out of that middle 3mm bead. We're going to go into that last hole of the round trio. Now, just like we did on this on the middle hole here, we're going to go ahead and add the extra beads. So all we have to do is just round out to this section. So we're going to add 2 15s. And then I'm going the wrong way. We need to go this way. And then our storm duo from the inner to the outer side. And then we're going to let that just fall to the project. Put the needle off to the side. And that's my working thread, so I'm going to hold on to that one now. Or the thread that I just finished using. So I have that wrapped around my finger. Now we're going to pick up the left hand thread, which is currently coming out of the 3mm bead in the center portion. So now we need to round it out so we can go back through all these beads and start adding more beads again on the right hand side. So we need to add our 3 11s. Apparently it's a bad allergy day. Add 3 11s. Go through your storm duo, your 2 15s, your round trio, 2 15s, and come out your storm duo on the right. And now your project should look like that. So this is our current thread that we're using right now. And sorry, take a little bit of water. Hopefully that'll help with my coughing. We're down here. Now we need to put our 4 15s along the edge so we can get up here, so we can close this out and make this side look like that. So let's get our 4 15s on our right hand thread. We're coming out of that bottom hole of that storm duo. We're going to go through the top hole. And you need to go all the way to the left hand side of the product. To do that, we're going to add another 8/0. So the 8/0 sits in between the two storm duos. And then that thread gets put off to the side and wrapped around the fingers so you can kind of keep it taut. And now we're picking up the left hand thread, which is currently coming out of the bottom hole of the left hand storm duo. We need to add our 4 15s. Go through that top hole of that same storm duo on the left, go through your 8, come out the storm dew on the right. And now we just have to add what we added down here at the very beginning to finish this portion out. So I'm coming out of this right hand side up here at the top one, the top hole. We're going to add 2 of our 11s, 1 of our 4mm bicones. We're going to let that come to the mat, or to the product. I'm holding on to that one because that's the one I'm setting off to the side, the thread, picking up the left hand side, picking up my 2 11s for this side, and then I'm going to cross through the 4mm bicone. And then I'll set this down on the mat so it's a little easier to see. And that is a complete segment or component of your bracelet. So now we just start all over again. So I'll get you started on it, and then after we get started on it, then the process is the same. So I'm coming out of the right hand side of the 4mm bicone. We're going to add 2 of our 11s. We need to add our storm duos. So picking up the first one, going from the inner side to the outer side, picking up an 8-0, and then picking up another storm duo going from the outer towards the inner. So the 2 outers are hugging the 8-0. Let that fall to the product. Wrap that thread around your finger because that's the thread we're putting down. Now we need to add the 2 11s on this side and then go back through these beads towards the right. So add our 2 11s and do just that. Go from the left side of the storm duo, the 8-0, and come out the storm duo on the right. And when you pull tight, make sure you're tugging on the threads and not the needle itself. Your product looks like that, which is now set up to where we were at the beginning of this step. So this is what you're going to end up doing for at least 7, 8, 6 round trios, something of that sort. Where you'll want to end at is where we ended here. So you're going to have your ending looking just like it is down here in the bottom, where you have your 2 11-0s, your 4mm, and then 2 11-0s. That's where you stop. So this will end up being where we add extra beads on the ends down here to make it easier to where you can add your, what is this, memory wire. We'll add these beads here along the sides on either side of that silver 4mm in the center. And it'll make it hopefully a little bit more sense once we get done with this. So continue on for your 6, 7, 8, 9, however many round trios that you need. End on that 4mm bead, whether it's a bicone or whatever, and I will meet you back and show you the next. Okay, so now that you have done your amount of components that you need to do, you should have your 2 threads coming out of your bicone or your 4mm bead at the very end. Now what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go back and forth through the bracelet 2 more times. So we're going to go back towards the front, then we're going to come back 1 more time down towards the end again, just to give it a little bit more stability, especially if you are using bicones or any other crystals, because we don't want the thread to fray or break or anything like that because of the crystal. Unfortunately, sometimes it does happen. All right, so what we're going to do on this step is we're going to take one of our threads and needle. Doesn't matter which side. Of course, I'm starting on the right-hand side just because I'm right-handed, so it's a little bit easier for me. And we're going to work our way through the beads until you get to where your 3mm crystal is at. So right now we're coming out of the 4mm crystal. We're going to go through the 2 11s on the side, the 4 15s, and then the first two 11s before you get to that 3mm bead. So it's the two 11s, the four 15s, and then the first two 11s out of that series of 3. Now here we're going to add a 15, 11, 15. I'm coming out of that second 11-0 out of those 3. I'm skipping the third one. I'm not going through the bicone whatsoever. So I'm skipping the third one in this first 3, and I'm skipping the first one in that second group of 3. So then I'm going to go through the second and the third 11-0 and continue on going through the four 15s and those two 11-0s before you get to the 4mm bicone and come on out. So my thread is now coming out. Set it down so hopefully it's a little bit easier to see. My thread is now coming out in between these two 11-0s right here, in right next to where the 4mm bicone is at. So this is what we just added. So now here we're just going to add an 8-0 and then continue on. So this is going to be similar to what we just did at the very beginning. So go through your two 11s, your four 15s, and then the first two 11s of the set of 3. Then we will add a 15, 8, and a 15. And then skip that third 11-0 plus the first one in the next group of 3 and go through the second and the third and then continue on to the next one. That grouping of four 15s plus the next two 11-0s. And then come on out. Now you don't want to do too many on one side before you start without doing the other side as well for your tension and everything. And the other thing that you want to do, especially after you get a couple of these done, kind of just massage your beads a little bit. You don't want this to squinch up too much. You don't want this to squinch up too much because it'll make your bracelet a little bit smaller than what you're expecting. So just kind of massage it through and everything. But this side is just done the same way. So you would go through your two 11s, your four 15s, the first two 11s on this side, add your 15, 8, 15, then skip the third of the 11-0s plus the first of the next grouping of 3 of the 11-0s, then go through your two 11-0s, your four 15s, your two 11-0s, and then add your 8-0 on that side. So continue on all the way down to the other end of the bracelet, and I will show you what to do next, and I will meet you back here in between the two that are sitting, basically what we started off with. You'll have 2 threads coming out of your other end of your bicone. So meet me back there and I'll show you next. Okay, so now you have all of your 8-0s and everything else added around the product to kind of give it a little bit more of a dimension. So threads should be coming out of the other end, the beginning of 4mm bead that you added on either side. What we'll do now on this step is we're going to add these 2 arms right here. So this is the very first 4mm bead that I started on the sample one. We're going to add this arm to the left of it and this arm to the right of it. And then we're going to go back down the product again. So to do that, you're going to need your 15s, 11s, and 8s. You're going to add 3 15s. No, wait, sorry. 3 11s. And then we're going to add, was it 3? No, actually, okay. Sorry, start over. We're adding 2 11s. Then we're adding 3 15s. So I was right at the beginning. I just didn't say it the right way. And then 1/8. So 2 11s, 3 15s, 1/8. Let that fall to the product. We're going to skip the 8. Go back through your 3 15s, your 2 11s, and the 4mm coming out the left hand side. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to add 2 11s, 3 15s, and an 8. Let that fall to the product. Skip your 8, go back through your 3 15s, 2 11s, and come out your 4mm bicone. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to reinforce that once. So I'm taking the other thread this time, and I'm going to go back through, because this one is on this side of the product, the left side. So I'm going to go back through the 11s, 15s, 8, round out that 8, skipping it, go back through the 15s, the 11s, the bicone, the 11s, the 15 on the other side, go through the 8 on that side, and then go back through one more time, the 15s, the 11, and come out the bicone on the left hand side. So now you have your one arm. Now this next step, this next portion of this step is very easy. We're just going to follow our thread path all the way down the outer edges of both sides of the product. And when you get down to this end over here, we're going to add these arms the same way. So after you add these 2 arms over here, then you can tie off your product or your threads and burn down your thread edges, because the middle portion of your bracelet will be done. So go ahead and get that part done and meet me back, and I'll show you what to do next. Alright, so now that you have your bracelet done, at least the center portion of it, you've got your arms on the one side and you did the arms on the other side. Now that that's done, we need to get our memory wire cut. Now you need to have your special memory wire cutters. Now if you don't have these, you can still use normal cutters. However, they are, memory wire is much more thicker and harder, so it may be a little bit rough on those pliers. So if you're able to get your special memory wire cutters, I would definitely suggest that. I have just a little small amount of my memory wire left over, so I should have enough to be able to do this. We're also going to need our round nose pliers. We'll be using those here shortly. And you don't have to have this, but for me, it made it a lot easier to figure out what I needed, how much I needed to get off, is my tape measure. So any type of flexible tape measure, or you can make your own if you need to. Now, at the very beginning of the video, I had suggested that knowing exactly what your comfort zone is as far as your bracelet size, that would be helpful. Like I said, I usually wear around a 7-inch bracelet. It's usually like 7 1/4 or something like that is usually comfortable for me. So I did mine as a 7, so this one ends up being more like a bangle. So what you'll end up doing with that number is that you need to add 2 inches to that. So then, of course, mine would be at 9 inches. And if you did only 6 inches, then you would do 8, and so on and so forth. If you did 8 inches for your bracelet, then you would have to cut off 10. The only reason why I'm doing 2 inches more than your wrist size is just comfort level as far as adding beads and everything. So you don't have to do it this way, but it does make it a little bit easier. The other thing that you need to get out is, there again, something if you want to, you don't have to, is just have a Sharpie or some sort of a marking tool so you can mark your memory wire a little easier. So I'm going to measure out 2 strands of around 9 inches of memory wire. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just laying my tape measure on the memory wire, and I'm just kind of inching it down ever so slightly until I get around to the 9-inch mark. And then make sure that you are on the correct wire. You don't cut the beginning wire by accident. And like I said, it doesn't have to be exact, so somewhere around in there is going to be my 9-inch mark. Now you can do this in two different ways. You can take this size that you just cut off and use that as your guide and measure off another one, or you can just do the exact thing again and measure off another size. So again, I just started at the very beginning, somewhere around the 0, and then just moved my way down, measuring out approximately 9 inches. Okay, well, I just lifted that up. I'm somewhere in there. There's my beginning one. Okay. So it's somewhere around there is my 9-inch mark. So we'll cut that part. And then there's my 2 pieces. Okay, these sizes are just about the same now. I don't know which one it was. Okay, those look similar. We'll use those two. That's pretty funny. I ended up with just about 9 inches left over in the rest of it. Okay, so we will still need our tape measure again here in a minute, so I'm not going to put it away just yet. Actually, we'll need it right now. What we want to do now is we want to mark ourselves a little mark on our memory wire. So when we go to make the loop for the bracelet, this part right here, we don't do it too big to where we have just a whole lot of memory wire at one end and then not a whole lot at the other end. So to do this, it just really is preference, but somewhere around a 1/2 inch or so is what I used as my gauge. So I'm getting my Sharpie out, and then somewhere around a 1/2 inch, I'm going to make a mark on one end of the memory wire. And I'm going to do that with both of my pieces. Now this, using a Sharpie is what I would suggest, only because you can use an alcohol swab, rubbing alcohol, and it'll get that Sharpie mark off there pretty quick. So now we're going to go ahead and make that loop. We only want to do this on one side and one side only, or else you're not going to be able to add your bracelet to it. So to do that, get your round nose pliers. Now here again, you can also mark exactly where you want to be at on your round nose. So if I want to be in that area, then I can make a mark on one of the arms of the round nose. But I'm just going to do an estimate. It makes it look a little bit more handmade if you do it that way. I'm going about halfway down the round nose pliers. I put the wire in between the 2 pliers, and I'm rubbing my finger on the right hand side, and I don't feel the other edge of it, so that way I know it's in a good spot. So I'm going to hold tight because it is kind of hard to turn sometimes. And then I'm going to turn downwards because I'm going with the flow of the memory wire. And I'm just going to continue to turn until I'm around that spot where I had made with the Sharpie. The other thing I want to make sure is at the end of your memory wire, you can kind of see it there. Make sure that's pointing towards the top, the top of the bracelet. If it's down closer down here to the bottom, it might scratch your arm a little bit, so it may be a little uncomfortable. So that's how you do that. And that's up at the top, so that's a good spot. So now I'm going to do that again just in case somebody didn't understand it or needs that extra help. So about halfway down my pliers, make sure you can't feel it on the other side. And that'll happen sometimes too. It pops out because it's hard to turn sometimes. So I'm just turning ever so slightly. And I'm also pushing down a little bit with my other hand. And you can see this one's not turning as easily as the other one did. There we go. So now we're close to that mark again. And then this is facing upwards. So it helps to keep the beads off, or beads from falling off. Plus it won't be irritating because it will be, the end of it will be at the top of the bracelet. So that's the next step, is to get your memory wire ready and set to go. And then go ahead and get that done. I will meet you back. We will need our seed beads back again if you choose to do that. And then I will show you how to add your memory wire to your bracelet itself. Okay, so for this step, we're going to add our bracelet onto one side of our memory wire. We'll just do the one side first, and then we'll add the second side, but it'll be the exact process. So I'm taking the end of the memory wire that is not coiled, and I'm going to take one of the ends that has one of the extra arms that we had added. We're just going to go straight through the 8/0 seed bead that's sitting there. We're going to go from the end of the product towards the center of the product. Now this is where you can decide if you want to add seed beads or not. You can just simply go through the 8/0s that are sitting on the outer edge of the components and thread it on that way. And do just that and not have any seed beads in between. Perfectly fine if you choose to do that. I'm going to go ahead and show the seed bead additives, just in case there's those out there that want to do that. So I'm just going through that first 8/0 right now, the one that's on the arm. Now in between these two 8/0s, it's a shorter distance between those two compared to these two. So this first section is only going to be a smaller amount of beads, obviously, than this section here. So this first section, I'm going to add 3 15s, 11, 8, 11, and then 3 15s. Now, depending on what type of seed beads you use, what coatings are on them, you may or may not be able to get some of the 15s on your memory wire. Sometimes they're a little too thick on the inside, and it just may not work. So you just do whatever you feel like you want to. You don't even have to use this pattern. You can use all 8/0s if you want to. You can use all 11/0s if you want to. Whatever your feeling is as far as what you want to do. Now, I've got these beads on the end of the memory wire. I'm going to hold them in my right hand. I've got the beads right there at the edge where I'm holding them right around my thumbnail. I'm going to hold them there, putting it up next close to the next 8/0 that I need to add to. That's the next 8/0, the brown one sitting there in the center. I'm going to use my left hand, my left finger, and push the memory wire ever so slightly until it gets to a point where I can add the memory wire to that 8/0 and push slightly to get it through. So that way your beads don't fall off your memory wire. And now I've got that first section on the wire. So now this next section will be a series of 5 15s, 3 11s, 1 8, 3 11s, and 5 15s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 3 11s, and 8, 3 11s, and then 5 15s. Okay, again, I'm holding the beads, the end of the beads, in my right hand, right around my thumbnail and my forefinger, getting it ready to go through that next 8/0. So I'm going to use my left hand and push the wire ever so slightly until it gets to a point where I can move that wire into the 8/0. Right now, at the very beginning, it's not as difficult. It gets a little bit harder once you get towards the end of it to be able to thread your wire through the 8/0s. That's the reason why I added those extra 2 inches. Make it a little bit easier to where you can add the seed beads. So that's all you do for this next section, is you thread on your extra seed beads. It's this long section for each portion in between the long portions, and then just add another smaller portion at the very end. And then meet me back. I will show you what to do next. Oh, well, you have to put on the other side as well. That could help as well. So you do the same thing with the other portion of the memory wire, going through this side of it, adding the same type of beads in the same fashion. So once you get done with both those sides, meet me back and I will show you the ending of it so we can finish off our little coil and be done with our bracelet. Alright, so now we're down to our last step and we will have our Kleo's memory bracelet done. So once you get both of your memory wires threaded on with all the beads and everything on either side, you'll have to push your product down a little bit until the beads start butting up against the coils that we made at the beginning. You don't want to do this too tightly, so you want to make sure there's a little bit of leeway, there's a little bit of give, so you can massage it backwards a little bit, massage it forward. See, that just added about 1/4 of an inch, just doing it that way. So just wherever you feel comfortable as far as where it's sitting and everything, kind of get it situated to where you can get your tape measure back out again and measure how much you need to cut off. So like we did at the very beginning, we did about 1/2 inch or so to make our coil. So we're going to do about approximate the same amount. So this time I'm going to start right around that last 8/0 and go towards, I'm not even going to mark it, I'm just going to use the measuring tape and then just go ahead and cut it. So right around that 1/2 inch mark or so, I'm going to cut. I'm going to do it just a little bit after that 1/2 inch mark. And then I'm going to go to the other wire. And then I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm doing just a little bit more than the 1/2 inch just because the other coils I had to make a little bit bigger than the 1/2 inch. So I want to make sure that I have enough room to make a full coil. Okay, so then, let me get the cutters out of the way. So now we got our round nose pliers again, somewhere down about halfway. Put your wire in the middle, make sure it's not touching on the outside. Hold tight and coil with the roll of the memory wire until you get your wire up at the top. That's a much better coil than the first one I did. So do the second one same way. I think these are actually a little bit smaller. There again, I really don't care. It makes it look like it's more handmade, I feel, when things are not the exact size, but I know that bothers some people, so there you go. So there's the other coil. And now your Kleo's memory bracelet is now complete. So here is the peach color that I made, and then here is the black color, which I did the black and the white one in memory of my cat because she was a black cat. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy this one.
Thanks so much for watching my Kleo's memory bracelet tutorial. I would love to see all your different colorways and different ways that you decide to make your bangle bracelets. Love to see all those different pictures and everything on Facebook. So log in and load up the pictures and let us see what you came up with. Again, also don't forget to like and subscribe so that way you know when Potomac's coming out with new videos. So thanks again for watching. I hope you all have a great day.